I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're celebrating the art of craftsmanship, history, and storytelling through leatherwork and a terrific book. The book is called Bonfe Leatherwork. And of course, it is more than just a book, it's a business as well. And it's a legacy of artistry, tradition, and passion brought to life by Robert Bonfe. If you appreciate handmade craftsmanship and the stories behind timeless designs, this is a conversation, this is a book you won't want to miss. We're delighted to have this very talented author and entrepreneur join us here today on Spotlight. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book and visiting his wonderful website. The links are below this interview. And be sure to download the Spotlight Network TV app streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Robert, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Very nice to meet you and your audience.
Nice to meet you as well. Your website is wonderful. The buckles are beautiful. How did you get into this art that blends belts and buckles and history and nature into a design?
Well, the first thing that actually got me into leather is that my grandfather, Albert Bonfe Sr., was from Italy, and he actually became he apprenticed and became a very popular shoemaker in Syracuse, New York. So what happened is every time my family used to visit Syracuse, I would go into his shop and clean it up. They would drop me off at his shop because it was before we would typically get in before 5 o'clock. So I would clean up his shop and polish everything. And, he would give me money to go to the deli for, ice cream or whatever.
Yeah.
And, but the thing is, the allure, the first thing that hits you when you smell real leather, okay, like when you go to, I don't want to mention any stores names or anything like that, but you go to your typical department store. I just went to one by me about 3 weeks ago. And I said, let me just go in the ladies' belt section and see what it looks like. It's dead. There's not a smell to it. They're all, they may have a little Italian cowhide on the calfskin on the top, but the backs are all plastic. And what happens is, anybody that knows, I'm sure you know as well, you stretch those belts out, the leather stretches, but the plastic doesn't. And what happens is it delaminates over time. I've actually had tradesmen that have shown me their belts that lasted them 3 weeks because they're, changing a diesel engine on the concrete, and it grates on the belt and it breaks the belt. So that's why since I've been 15 years old, I barely ever bought another belt because I make them myself. You know what I mean?
Right.
But as I said, the smell in my grandfather's shop, that smell of good leather, people walk into my workshop and they're like little kids walking into a bakery. You know what I mean? They're smelling it, and they'll just walk like mesmerized up to the wall as like the holy grail of leather. Because, that's even before they see the belt buckles. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
the leather that's the hook for it, because they know it's single thickness. And I have an example of it right here. This is single thickness cowhide. In fact, this turquoise one that I have here, you can see that's almost 4 millimeters thick. That's strong enough to pull a truck with and then go out to dinner after with. And my wife's ready to shoot me sometimes because in the wintertime, it's a little cold in the workshop and the leather does not like winter. So what I do is we have one of these long counters. I had a whole hide of this, and I'll strip it out. You know what I mean? I hand cut the belts myself, just like it was done. If you went to the Old West in the 100 years ago, the way I make them is exactly how it's made back then. And that's what, I don't want to blab too much, but my grandfather, my father-in-law, Pat, actually has a belt that I made him 45 years ago. He still wears it.
Yeah.
He's lucky enough to have a waist that he can still wear it with, you know what I mean? But he was a mason, and their belts, get, as you can imagine, get all, gummed up with mortar and everything like that. They crack and they break. They're good for maybe 2 or 3 months. You know what I mean? I made him a belt and I said, Pa, I will make you a belt that'll last you your lifetime. And he goes, all right, we'll see about that. And I actually made a video of him. He's 89 years old now, but I actually made a video of him showing me the belt. And I put that on my Instagram. You know what I mean?
Wow.
But
Amazing.
to get back, I don't want to blab too much, but to get back to your point,
Yeah.
the thing that really started me on towards doing the belts in particular is my dad was a adaptive phys ed teacher for BOCES, which you've been on Long Island, you know what BOCES
Yep.
is, right? And he also worked for a program called the Town of Islip Program for Exceptional Children, which was huge back in the day. It had like 1,000 people, 1,000 handicapped individuals who were great. It was a phenomenal program for them. And they had a leather crafting program there that he told me if I volunteered for the program when I was 14 or 15, then I would be able to take over as leathercraft supervisor when I was 16, which I did. And I began to make my bones with, learning everything about the craft, learning how to case leather, how to wet it and carve it and everything like that. And, I enjoyed making small things, but to me, it just exploded. Now, I want to say my actual career, I worked 34 years as a science and special ed teacher, which actually led me to, I just retired about 5 years ago. And what happened is I was always making belts, but I figured I love investing in the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
And that was only taking up about 2.5 hours of my time a day. And I was like, you know what? Not enough. I need a challenge because all the challenges during teaching, you know what I mean? I do 8 things a lot better than I do 2 things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And which I'm sure with all the things you do, you can appreciate that statement,
Yeah.
And I said, as far as the book goes, the reason why, let me show you up close, is how I got led into making the book was my grandsons were over last summer. And with my daughter, Stephanie, who actually translated my book for me. She's bilingual, and she translated a bilingual educator. And she translated the book for me into Spanish because I wanted to be available to all. I really wanted this. I wanted to do it for fun. It was fun for me to write, but it was serious. My intention to write this for educating special ed kids that were, let's say they were lower functioning, but in junior high school, I wanted to give them an age appropriate book that would be highly motivational for them, but they could still read and everything like that, as well as for the multilingual kids. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So anyways, it was kind of funny what happened. My daughter and my grandsons were over to go in our hot tub, and we were having lunch. So my daughter suggested I had to finish a belt for my sister. So she suggested, why don't you take the kids in there and show them how you make the belts? I said, sure, come on in. So my grandsons, Michelangelo and Giovanni, came in there with me, and they were so entranced with the buckles that I have in there. I'll give you an example of one that I have. This one's one of my real fun buckles. I just got this in. The Beatles. You know what I mean?
Hold that up a little bit higher so we can see it, Robert. That's perfect.
How's that? Got it?
Great. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, this is a 40-year-old buckle made by a company called Baron Brass. And it's just another example this is in very mint condition, solid brass. And what I do in addition to my own buckles is if somebody has a particular, like, let's say, for example, you're a golfer, right? And you say, Bob, and I've done this many times, I want you to find me a mint condition belt buckle of a golfer showing him swinging the club, hitting a ball. I can do that for you. Now, I don't buy zinc. I don't buy junk. I don't buy any, this is where the art comes into it. I take the you know, like if you look at this belt here, I take this happens to be a plate turquoise. Okay, can you see it?
Yep.
This happens to be a plate turquoise buckle made by one of my silversmiths. All right. It's absolutely beautiful. And then I made a black belt for it to go to really make the turquoise pop, you know?
Yep.
Now, this
Absolutely.
is appropriate for a male or a female. And you can just see, I mean, if you see pictures on my website of people wearing it, it just pops
Yeah.
from like 20 feet away. People see that. And what my customers all say to me is that, you know, Bob, I was walking down the street in downtown Patchogue, and 5 people came up to me to find out where I got that, because nobody does it.
Awesome.
Very few people do it, and very few people do it the way that I do it. Most people have just their generalized belts that they'll make, but I'm the one that will actually take it and make a great setup, as I call it. And I can take that Beatles belt buckle and put a custom belt on that and make it for you for under $100, for
Amazing.
$98, which would cost you $180 at a saddlery shop to have it done.
And your jeans might even cost you more than that, depending on what kind of jeans you wear. Your work is terrific. You have elevated this craftsmanship to art. It is absolutely beautiful, highly recommended. We've been talking today about Bonfe Leather Shop. It's more than just a business. It's a legacy of artistry, tradition, and passion brought to life by Bob Bonfe. If you appreciate handmade craftsmanship and the stories behind timeless designs, you will love his book and, of course, visit his website. Stand out from the crowd. Look a little different, maybe feel a little retro, 1960s, 1970s, make those jeans pop, as Robert said. Bob, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. I appreciate it. It was my pleasure to talk with you, and a big hello to your audience as well. It's glad to meet you.
Great having you on the show, sir. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.